All right. How's the how are the audio levels? Do I sound all right? Everything good? Everyone happy? All right. How's the got a piping hot, delicious cup of coffee right here to slurp on right in your ear. All right, so per the usual, let's go ahead and look at this thing from the macro view, and then we'll zoom in. Probably delete all this stuff here, huh? Ooh, whoops! Don't want to delete you. Delete you. Okay, so let's see. Oh, sorry. Let me silence my phone. So if we look at this thing from the macro perspective, which we should always be contextualizing this in the macro perspective, right? We see, I think the last time we spoke, we were here. We hadn't quite re-entered into this linear trend, you know, here and here, which obviously we're back into. But one of the key things to keep an eye on right here is going to be the Fibonacci levels here, here, and here. And you see that, you know, we've currently found support on the 61, and now we're testing the 50, which I suspect we're going to make a new high out of and retest the 50 EMA right here, this guy, which coincides, let's zoom in a little bit, with the bottom of the previous distribution trading range. Which is this red box. This whole thing is the previous distribution trading range. So if we extend a little line here, yeah, oh, it went up a little bit, didn't it? Something like that. You know, it's very conveniently here. You know, this little band of prices right in here. But I suspect before we see any retracement, we're likely to test this thing, which is approximately 1070-ish, 10.7K. So this guy. What is it? Yeah, 10.7. So 10.7K. Why do I think that? Well, because on the lower time frames, if we look in closer, let's say if we look at the 30-minute view, we don't see a lot of shorts being opened. But I want to bring your attention to this this channel here, which is very interesting because it's been a let's turn off the EMAs here. Yeah. Okay. So if we look at this thing from the top until now, and let's unmerge you down. Unmerge down. Okay, there we go. Perfect. So if we look at this thing, yeah, that's a good view. Then we can see a very clear supply and demand channel, right? So top is going to be supply, bottom is going to be demand. Whenever the price reaches the bottom, their demand is highest. Whenever the price reaches the top, the supply is highest. We can see it obeyed at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5.5 times, and now we're at 6. So I suspect, just based on the trend and the fact that we're exiting distribution, we're in the markdown campaign, that we're going to see a retest of the trading range, which is about 10.7, like I said. So this is about 10.7K. And that would have us breaching this supply channel. So I'll go ahead and mark this again. This is supply up top. And then from there, we're going to see a retracement. I really believe that we're going to see a retracement from there. Mostly because if you look at the lower time frames, we don't see it. We see On face value, we see growing volume, but as we look in closer, you know, and we compare it like from this view on like a 15-minute time frame, this thing is diverging pretty badly. Not in volume yet, but on other indicators like the RSI, the MACD, and I'll show you these too. The MACD, and we're approaching major resistance up here. We're approaching major resistance on the higher time frames. Like I said, we are testing the macro 50, and then we'll be testing this major resistance band right here. So it's going to get very interesting right here. Let's call you purple. Once it get, no, not purple. Let's do green. Does that show up well? Green? Or is that too bright? I think green should be okay. Once it approaches, no, I don't like green. Let's do red. Once it approaches this dark red, brownish band here, price is going to start getting turbulent. It's already turbulent right now, but we can see that it's making a very aggressive move upward with very little pullback to speak of so far. So we see this very, you know, not even really parabolic. It's just kind of like a nice, just trucking right along, not really stopping for any of these resistance levels. And, you know, I suspect right in here, we're going to see a local top, if not an absolute top for this run. So let's compare it to the previous moves and gain some insight, because I've noticed there are sort of fractal patterns going on here that I think are worth noting. And they're like this. So there are 3 of them. So here's 1. Here's 2. And now here's 3. Okay. So we see this V bottom sort of shape here. So let's call this V1. We see a V bottom here. Let's call this V2. And now we've got V3. Right? Both of which rallied to a high. These two guys, saw a retrace to lower lows or equivalent lows. We never saw that here. I suspect probably because it fell so hard. There were so many people buying, and it was such a low price point relative to its all-time high that there was just too much demand to see a retracement like this down to here. But what we do see is if I turn on the supply and demand channel here, we see a very clear testing of the upper limits of the supply, like right here, right? It goes very vertical, kind of peters out, and then it retraces hard. It goes very vertical, kind of peters out, it retraces hard. Went very vertical, petered out, retraces hard. Went very vertical from here, petered out, retraces hard, and now we're doing the same sort of thing, where it went very vertical. And I'm currently not in a position at all personally. I'm waiting to see something like this, where it attempts to make a new high right here. See how it makes a new high here, and then it retraces. It makes a new high, it retraces, makes a new high, and it retraces. So I'm looking for something like that to go short, because right now I'm not sold on this being the bottom. I'm not sold on this being a bullish reversal. The volume just doesn't seem to support that sort of thesis. And I don't know if you guys follow Nick Trades. Nicola, I think it's Nick Trades, Nicola Duke. She brought up a really good point too, is that like a shitload of people bought up here and they're waiting to get out with their tails tucked. So there's a lot of overhanging supply above these price levels. So there are a lot of people waiting to get out, and I think if we start to see legitimate selling right in here, we're gonna see you know, something like this, or something like this take place again, or something like this take place again. We've had very aggressive selling and very hard retracements, and I'm not sold on a reversal yet. You know, something that would convince me of a reversal would be something where, you know, we break out of this supply channel, and it finds support here and maybe even consolidates above that, that would change my mind. But at the moment, I don't really see it, and the volume's just not really there. Like, we see little local spikes, but it's nothing to like write home about, right? Like, look at this in the grand scheme of the trend. It's not a whole lot of volume. Great channel for bears. Keep waiting and miss out on all the gains. Okay. Well, if I'm always bearish, then there's no need for you to be here, right? If there are reasons to think this is bearish, then why not be bearish? I mean, I just gave a bunch of reasons for why it would be bearish and what would sway me to be bullish, but I mean, to each their own. You know. Another level to watch out for is how it reacts with the daily 50 EMA. If we break above this and find support on this, that's going to be super bullish, right? If we break above the 50 and we find support on the 50, again, that's going to be bullish. But you know, so far we've only done a minor retracement in the overall pullback. You know, I wouldn't be surprised to see it rally to, like I said, to 1070 to the bottom of, I'm sorry, 10.7 to the bottom of the trading range. And you know, I expect to see some turbulence. And if we do see a bullish continuation, there's at least going to be some selling going on right in this level in here. So, you know, if you're bullish, then expect to see some sells. And if you're bearish, maybe you'll get a good entry there. But overall, and if we look at the 1 week, whoops, if we look at the 1 week, you know, again, we saw this reversal doji on the weekly. Whether that's going to pan out to be something like this, whether it pans out to be something like this, where it's only a minor reversal like this, and this guy, both of these are potential reversal dojis. And, you know, this being, what is this called? This is a spinning top, and this is called a hammer, and again, another spinning top here. But I think this is actually called a dragonfly. I don't know, there's a bunch of weird names for them. I don't remember them all by name, but you just got to remember that whenever there's a long wick and a narrow body, that means that supply and demand are almost in equilibrium. And that's why the price spread is so narrow. But you can see here that, you know, obviously bulls are dominating, but it wouldn't surprise me to see this again, to see it pull back. So look for sideways movement at 10.7 for bull. Not sideways movement, but look for. I'm just saying it's most likely going to be turbulent there because there's a lot of overhead resistance. There's a lot of overhanging supply, and you know, we just rallied really fucking hard, so people are going to look to take profit. So that combined together, it can make it very turbulent. But you know, how it interacts at that price level is going to determine like my overall sentiment. Right now, like I said, we're flirting with the edge of the supply channel, and right now it's finding resistance on it. But I'm fully expecting it to break through, you know, something like this fashion right here and this fashion right here. And how it interacts at this price level is going to determine whether or not, you know, I'm gonna buy for my hold stash or open a short. So I'm playing it by ear right now. I'm undecided at the moment. Why don't you have a trend like from the top of the all-time high in 2017 to the high at January 5th, 2008. What? I feel like when you draw like downward, draw that like downward. I don't know what you're saying to me. If this scenario happens, we find resistance at 10.7 and likely go down a bit. What do you think happens with alts? Do they go down even more? Yeah, I mean, if Bitcoin pulls back, everything goes back. Don't be fooled by the bullishness of a lot of the alts right now. Make no mistake about it. If Bitcoin pulls back, the alts are going to pull back too. The real question is what's going to bounce harder, the Bitcoin or the alts? Right now, Litecoin looks stupid bullish. So if Bitcoin pulls back, Litecoin's going to pull back, but it's going to bounce very aggressively, and I would anticipate it bouncing a lot harder than Bitcoin does once it finds its local bottom. Those interested in science respect bearish predictions. Those interested in permanent bullish predictions can join Telegram. I mean, I'm just giving my personal opinion, man. I mean, if it seems like I'm coming across as always being bearish, it's because I'm approaching it from a skeptical eye and because I'm risk averse. So, I mean, do what you want, but I'm not just going to sit here and give you constant bullish predictions or constant bearish predictions. I just gave you a list of both bullish and bearish, what you can expect from both those parties. Also, a lot of bag holders are waiting to get out overhead. Yeah, that's what I meant by overhanging supply, is that a lot of people who are bag holding from the top, I mean, look at the volume up here. If you look at like the daily, for example, like there's a lot of people that bought above this current price level. Everyone from this point forward, everyone from this point to this point, everyone in here bought above the current price level. So there's a lot of overhanging supply with everyone in here. It's very obvious that everyone who bought in here did not sell on the way down because the volume just isn't, cumulative volume just isn't there. Where do you expect the bottom to be? Around 4,000 like before? Yeah. So I'm expecting, if it does go down, I'm expecting to find a bottom right around the 78% retracement value, somewhere in here. There's a lot of support here. If we look at the weekly, there's a lot of support there with the Ichimoku cloud. I'll show you that. So we look at the weekly Ichimoku, then there's a lot of cloud support there. You've got the 200 EMA, even if it does break through that, like I don't anticipate it breaking below 3,000 to 4,500. Like there's a lot of support there. This cloud's going to provide support. The 200 EMA is going to provide support. Yeah, so there's a lot of support down there. And if we look at this thing from the Ichimoku perspective on the daily, like it still looks pretty bearish. Both the Tenkin and the Kijun are pointed down. All three of the spans are hanging through the cloud. This bearish Kumo is just looking fat and juicy. Like it's not even, there's not even a hint of a bullish twist to this thing. So I think we still got, we've got, I'll just put it this way. In order for me to flip macro bullish, there's a lot of things that need to cross off my checklist. And also, if you look at the Bollinger Bands too, let me do this. So we look at the Bollinger Bands too. We're seeing a nice rounding out of the Bollinger Bands on the daily, the 12-hour. Seeing a nice little squeeze here, so it leads me to believe that we still got a little bit more upward life in this move. But on like things like the 6 hour, we're starting to see a lot of divergence on the MACD. But it's coming out of coming out of a nice squeeze on the 6 hour. So I'm keeping an eye on the 6 hour B bands, and the 4 hour also had a nice squeeze here. And I'm keeping an eye on those because I'm looking for them to start rounding out. And once those start rounding out, that's a pretty good macro bearish indicator. But for the time being, you know, like I have no reason to be immediately bearish. Would you recommend taking profits now and getting back in at 9,500 or so? That's up to you, my dude. Draw a trend line. Wait, what? Draw a trend line from the all-time high in December. So the all-time high in December will be here. No, here. Okay. To the top of the all-time high in January. Okay. Why? Why would I do that? 2 points is not a trend. 3 points is a trend. So this is only 2 points. So there's no reason to think of that as a trend. You should look for something to best represent the move. And in my opinion, this dotted line is the best way to represent this move because we see it being respected multiple times, you know, 6, 7 times. And anytime it breaks over, it pulls back. So do you expect the sell volume to increase at any point or just a permanent slow bleed as the CEO is out? So here's a misconception about the way that distribution, markdown, and redistribution play into the market cycle. Okay, let's get the volume in here. So here's a quick high-level overview of how the CEO, the composite operator, plays distribution and redistribution of markdown, right? So here's the distribution trading range. You can call it this if you want, but this is the main distribution trading range. This is a redistribution trading range. This is markdown, and somewhere in here we're going to see redistribution or reaccumulation or an accumulation trading range, something like that, right? But if you look here, there's very high volume right on the shoulder, right? And there's actually less volume as you go lower. This is because this is propelled by the bullish investors that went long in here. And as it starts to push lower and lower, you see the volume growing because more and more of them are being squeezed out of their positions until ultimately we hit this bottom. And then the people who shorted this whole way down, or this whole way down, they start to take profit. And this is a short, called a short covering rally, where the people who were short, anywhere up here, they're covering their shorts, and you can see that the buy volume is very aggressive and it tapers out as people who are short start to take profit. But the people who don't take profit or don't fully take profit are the composite operators because they're trying to manipulate the trend, right? So what they do is in here, they partially close their position. So if we zoom closer and look at something like the 30-minute, it'll start to make a little bit more sense. So I wish I could pull up my stylus right now, but so if we look in here, okay. Oh, I can't draw in there. Well, can I? Okay, so if we look in here, right, the composite operator is net short, and then a lot of these rallies. So if you're watching these things, like you see here this random green candle, random green candle, random green candle, with widespread, followed by sells, right? This is all the composite operator testing the buying pressure of the market. So the composite operator is net short, with their entry, their average entry being way up here, and they're partially closing these things, market closing, so that they can spark little rallies to see where the buying pressure is. And the whole purpose is to weed out the shorters, spark buyers, and you can see it like overall volume is going down as the uncertainty in the market is just growing, because people are like, well, it should be pulling back, and the bulls are like, why isn't it rallying? And so people are unsure of what's going on. So less and less people as time goes on are participating in the market. So you see it right here, right? Like the overall volume is going down, right? This is what consolidation is. Less and less people are participating in the market. So that means less and less shorters, less and less bulls, until there's a decisive break of the trend, which happens right here, right? So we make this new high. It happens on very high volume. And then, you know, it happens on very high volume to jump across this resistance to finally spook out the bears, probably even stop out a lot of them, as some of them they place their stop losses on the previous high, right? So a lot of them are going to place their stop losses here. So as soon as we break this level right here, the volume just grows very intensely, because it's a combination of not only are shorters covering, they're being stopped out, and bulls are opening. So it's a nice little perfect storm of bullish pressure here. But one thing that's immediately concerning if you're a bull is look how much effort it takes to move the price here. So we see a lot of buying pressure here with very little result, right? The same the same price movement occurred on, like, I don't know, a quarter of the volume down here to move it here, right? And we see very narrow candles in here. If we zoom in a little closer, we see very narrow candles, meaning that there's a lot of selling going on in there, which means it's not all bulls, it's a lot of bears. And I suspect that right in here, there's, you know, some additional short opening going on here, because it's very narrow, and maybe profit taking combined with shorting. But, you know, effort versus result here says that it's due for a little pullback or a spike upward and then a pullback. What program do you use to add sketches to your charts? Well, I have a Wacom tablet, and I think this is the native software for the Wacom tablet. So it's just whatever comes with it. What do I have? I have I think it's called a Wacom Intuos or something. Anyway, this right here, this high volume, there's very little result here. It just seems ripe for a pullback, and now we're already testing the previous high here, so maybe we will see a pullback before a new high. But like I said, you know, it's basically testing the supply line here. So if we can break above this, we'll have to play it by ear, but for now I am skeptically bearish, borderline agnostic at the moment. You guys have any questions about the stuff I just covered? Oh, also, one of the main reasons, I don't know if you guys saw this, but I have a video where I talked about the history of parabolic trends with Bitcoin, and I think this is worth mentioning too. If we look at like Bitstamp and its price history, we look at something like the daily. Oh, nice. This stuff is still on here from my stream like forever ago. Okay, so we see that a lot of the time we see a strong retracement. So if we look at previous runs, especially the most recent ones where there were strong moves upward, we see 78% retracement. So here's one. Here's one. I don't know why this doesn't have its fib on there, but this is going to be one as well. Oops. This one actually went well below the 78. But we see that every time it breaks the parabolic trend in recent history, it makes a 78% retracement. It's entirely possible that we're doing something like this. So we see here on the last parabolic break, wait, did I get that backwards? What the hell? No, that's right. So if we look at this retracement value, you know, we're below the 78. And before it went down to the 78, it broke the 61, just like we did, right? And then it rallied up to the 50, which is right here. And it kind of just like hung out there. It broke and it hung out there. And then it ultimately began this grueling bear market for, you know, several months. So, you know, that's a possibility. Just like right here. Same sort of thing happened, right? So this is the one before that. So we broke down, it rallied up to the 50, even to the 38 this time, probably because it broke so hard and there's a lot of buying pressure going back up, but ultimately it went down to the 78 before markup. So, you know, we've got a history of doing that sort of activity where it breaks to the 61, it bounces up to the 50, you know, breaks to the 61, bounces up to the 50, and then goes down to the 78. And this even went below it. But in our case, you know, so keep this in mind. This is interesting. I actually haven't looked at this chart on Bitstamp in a while. So we see here, if we compare this to the previous one, we broke the 61, we rallied up to the 50, and ultimately the 78 is going to be in the 4K values. So it stands to reason that like that's a reasonable outcome before the next markup phase begins. So just keep that in mind. How do you distinguish between profit taking and new positions being opened? Well, the most immediate way you can look at it is you can go to, you know, you can look at the Bitfinex longs and shorts. So if we look at like the 30-minute, for example, these are the shorts. All right, so in the past couple of days, the shorts are down, but now they're starting to pick back up. Now if we look at the longs, I bet we'll see the longs going down as well. Yeah, so you see a lot of profit taking from the longs the whole way up. And the longs are just like dropping like flies. A lot of profit taking going on here. So that's one of the easiest ways to see if profit taking is taking place. And that's a lot of profit taking as well. Not a lot of shorts going up though. Like if we look at the shorts in the past, you know, we're nowhere near as high. So people aren't as confident in a downward move, but people also aren't as so there's a difference between being confident in a downward move and not being confident in an upward move. Those aren't the same two things, right? Right now, there's a lot of indecision right now because the shorts are low, but also the longs are low. So people are kind of just like, they're like sitting on the sidelines, you know, feeling things out. If big moves, both BTC up and BTC down are bad for alts. When is a good time to trade? Isn't it risk management and good entries? I'm not sure what you're asking me, my guy. Sorry. BTC will do a final retrace after the Asian New Year. Has always happened historically. If you check BTC USDT alts. Okay. You can see the indecision on other coins too. So if you want to, let's look at Litecoin right now. So if you can see the indecision in the market, like if we look at Litecoin. So even though Bitcoin's going up, like Litecoin was making aggressive moves upward until Bitcoin started rising, and it followed it a good bit, but not the same percentage as Bitcoin was moving, and it's actually pulling back. So the indecision of where Bitcoin's current price position is bleeding over into the other coins, and you know, people aren't as interested in going long because Bitcoin looks poised for a pullback at the moment. Whether that's macro or micro, or whether or not that springs a new high remains to be seen, but again, just something to keep an eye on. Is LTC USD in a reaccumulation? I haven't actually looked at this in a while. I don't know if it's in a reaccumulation, but it definitely broke a downward trend, like a sustained downward trend, right? Like very simply, we see just a real like rough and dirty breakout here, and if we look at the let's look at this guy. Oh no, I want to look at you. Whoa. And we look at this, where we see on the 12-hour we broke through this thick cloud here. So I mean, Litecoin looks bullish. It's been looking bullish. I think that LitePay announcement was a big deal. I mean, obviously it's a big deal. It's new access to Litecoin, and it's moving faster than Bitcoin. So it stands to reason that the price action is gonna be more aggressive on Litecoin. But Litecoin's looking really bullish, and as soon as I find confidence in a bottom for Bitcoin, I'm gonna be looking to accumulate a lot of Litecoin because it, you know, has a lot going for it right now, both fundamentally and technically. I believe if we look at the LTC BTC pair as well, the same sort of stories there. So, oh yeah, okay. So, for whoever asked about the reaccumulation, I have a trading range drawn right here from forever ago when we were talking about alts, and we just reached the trading range. We're doing a BUEC at the moment, back up to the edge of the creek to test the previous highs, but it's on diminishing volume, right? So we see it tapering out, but the volume is low, which is what we'd expect on a BUEC, is tapering volume on the retest. But yeah, overall, Litecoin looks very bullish, especially on the BTC pair. It looks pretty good. What's going on with Ether and EOS? So the hell? Why can't I move that? Oh, it's locked. Okay. So at the moment, Ether is looking a little anemic on the BTC pair. It's kind of just bleeding out, right? It's not looking as bullish as it once did. The volume just on the way up was tapering down. This random big ass sell occurred here, and just doesn't look to be as bullish as it was before. It's also possible that this is a like a reaccumulation trading range, this whole thing. And right now we're just doing a BUEC. Where's my pen? So this would be like the reaccumulation trading range, right in here. You know, something like that. This would be the spring. Or even like this. This would be the reaccumulation trading range with the spring. Right now, it's not looking too hot. Man, what's the deal with that big ass sell? Is that a big buy or a big sell? Looks like a little bit of both, huh? But yeah, it's broken below this 38 fib line, which was holding up really nicely for a while. To be honest with you, this kind of reminds me of the price activity that happened here. This looks very similar to what happened here, where it went very parabolic. Actually, I take that back. It doesn't. It looks more similar to something like this, where it broke up, it kind of like faded out, and then it started to rally again. But at the moment, it's underperforming Bitcoin, so I see no reason to be longing Ether at the moment. Ether considered as a security? I don't know. But yeah, all eyes are on Bitcoin right now because it's running the show per the usual, and you know, it's at a, oh look, it had a bit of a pullback since we were doing the stream. Yeah, it pulled back, not the major, just like $100 or so. But it's finding support on the 61, so that's good. Finding support right on there, like almost to the dollar value. Finding support on the 61. I mean, finding resistance on this macro 50 was expected. Like I would fully expect to see this pull back, even if it does continue on to, you know, like outer space, it just keeps going. I fully expect this to pull back. And now it's finding support in the 61, and it looks like it's getting a little bit of a bounce. So, just to recap what I was saying earlier, I think this is going to be a really important level right in here at 10.7, basically the bottom of the previous trading range. There's a lot going on there, and that would mark a breach of this. So personally, anything that breaches this, I'm going to keep a close eye on and look to open a nice short outside of this and try to catch something along the lines of this guy or this guy here. Do you think we could see OMG going up after product being released? Or will BTC stop it from going up? Listen, here's the thing. All coins fall when Bitcoin falls. Don't get it twisted. That's just how it goes. I don't care what coin you think is super cool. When Bitcoin decides to pull back, everything does. It's just how it goes. There's also this I mean, it's entirely possible that this thing just plays out this inverted head and shoulders here too. You know, like inverted head and shoulders here. With this being the neck, you know, this being the neckline. So if this is the inverted head and shoulders, this is the neck, and this is the neckline here, we could see a pretty substantial bounce from here, which would be, 3K or so. So a bounce upward would bring us somewhere in here. So maybe we see that. Maybe we see this whole thing play out, but I just don't see it. Like, I see this as a bull trap. This looks like a bull trap to me. It really does. Just like this was. Just like this double bottom was. Just like this double bottom was. Just like this inverted head and shoulders was right here. I just don't think the market's ready for a markup. It just seems very idyllic right now. Thanks for the input on Ether. You're welcome. What's your input on EOS long term? Long term, I'm bullish on EOS. This still looks very bullish on the Bitcoin pair, and as soon as Bitcoin, I'm just waiting for Bitcoin to find its bottom because there's so many coins I want to buy right now, but I just don't really see much. I just don't see a lot of upside right now to buying some of these coins. Like, I'm using fiat to long them, but I can't bring myself to hold them just yet. Like, I'm just worried that, like, I'm gonna wake up and see a pullback like this. Like, it's just gonna go, and it's gonna pull back heavy, and I'm gonna regret buying whatever coins I bought here, and it's just like it's tanking. So for the time being, I'm sitting in fiat, and even if I'm going long, I'm sitting in fiat too. So I just find that to be a bit more a bit more suited for my risk tolerance at the moment. Peter Brandt pointed out a head and shoulders on BCH recently. What do you think of it? Bitcoin has a similar pattern, but they don't really work well at this market phase, right? I don't know what you mean about working well in this market phase. Here's something that I'm keeping an eye on for BCH. I think he pointed out the USD pair, right? If I remember correctly. Oh, get rid of these fucking lines in the background. The fuck? That was weird. How did that happen? All of a sudden, it just switched to Bitcoin. I assume you're talking about this thing. Yeah, it looks like it's failing to break out at the moment. Probably because the BTC pair is not doing too hot at the moment. But it is fitting inside this nice trading range. My trading group's tracking this one on my Discord. It looks like a nice reaccumulation trading range. And it's currently doing a BUEC, right? So it jumped the creek with this high injection of volume right here. And now it's doing a slow trickle pullback, before it makes its next jump, most likely. I had training at work and missed everything till now. I mean, you could just rewind it. I mean, it's still there. Just rewind it. Just scroll back. Scrub back. It'll be right there, I promise. Could it be Ether is correcting in the same way it did on the first rally? I'll define first rally and be more specific. Could it be a fractal? I don't know what you're referring to. Are you referring to... Why are all my charts like this? They have these shitty backgrounds now. It's so gross. Ew. Come on, this thing? I mean, it's already retraced 100% of its move, which usually is not a good sign if it retraces 100% of its move. Something that I am tracking is the similarity between this move and XRP's move. This is very interesting. So check this out. So just follow, it's a bit of a stretch, but it's an interesting point. So we see this little parabolic move, it pulls back, parabolic move, it pulls back, and now it has a hypodermic parabolic blow off, and now it's kind of doing this like slow bleed thing. So keep this image burned into your head. Let's go look at XRP, because they did something very similar. Oh, I think I have it right here. So very similar sort of thing, right? So it broke out of its accumulation trading range. It did this like parabolic move, it pulled back, parabolic move, it pulled back, and then it had a parabolic sort of top, and then it just slowly bled and did 100% retracement before it ultimately began its markdown. I think the XRP BTC pair looked very similar as well. Yeah, so the XRP BTC looks really similar. So we see, and the other thing too is keep an eye on this volume profile. So the whole way up, we see volume going down with each peak, right? So we see divergence on the volume. And if we go back to this bro, it's the same sort of thing. Very similar. Both with this hypodermic blow off and this retracement. So look at this retracement, how it retraced 100% of its move. It retraced 100% of its move and bounced. Retraced 100% of its move and it bounced. This just looks very, very similar to Ether Bitcoin. I'm sorry, to XRP BTC. So this could be in its future. This volume profile just looks like shit, and the way it's acting with XRP, the same way XRP did, it just doesn't look too hot. Oh, so here's something that someone from my trading group posted this on the Discord. So we see here what he did was he took a projection of, let's make this white. So he took this entire, the last bear run, right? So from here all the way to here, and he tagged it. So he basically just moved this peak to this peak right here, and it's fitting spot on at the moment. And we can even zoom in a little bit. So, if we see this dip right here and the rally, we're right about where it rallied last time. So we see the dip, we see the rally, and then the next markdown. So it's very, so here are the two dips right here. Here's current dip, here's a previous dip. I mean, it lines up very, very well. Even this like second peak, like it looks very, very similar. Which is one of the main reasons why I'm bearish as well. It's just like, it just looks like it's, you know, it just looks very similar to all the previous bubbles popping. How do you determine where the real bottom will be? What is your list of must-to for Bitcoin to be bullish on it? Oh, I already talked about that. If you scroll back, or if you go back, it was like one of the very first things I talked about in this stream. So just go ahead and check that out so I don't have to rehash that. Yeah, if you go back to the very beginning, it was one of the first things I talked about was like, this is, in my opinion, this is, in order for me to be bullish, it has to overcome X, Y, and Z. And right now it's doing A, B, and C instead. Also, I don't know if this is like an official way to track sentiment, but you start to see as the hubris of the Twitter community grows and people start to be more and more dickish and cocky about their predictions, that's usually a bearish indicator. When people think that they've outsmarted the market, they're like, oh, I've got this figured out. It's usually when it pulls back. How is the chart generated? The one I showed from the Discord group? There's a tool. Where is it? Is it here? No. There's a tool that lets you do that. If I can find it. I forget where it is. Is it bars pattern? Or you can hide. No, that's not it. Was that it? I forget. I don't usually do this kind of. Yeah, so look. If you use the bars pattern, the bars tool, I can start here and drag it to here, and it makes a little replica of it. See? And you can like resize it and shit, so you can make it fit whatever trend you're doing. But yeah, that's a nice way to chart fractals, is using that tool. Any thoughts on LTC? Yeah, I talked about LTC already. You're welcome. You know, a lot of people are hitting me up on Twitter asking me, they're like, man, and they're PMing me and they're saying, I really want to know what you have to say about the market. What are your thoughts? I'm waiting for the next stream, blah, blah, blah. If you're really interested to hear what I have to say that often, like I really recommend joining the trading community because I'm on there basically 24/7, and when I'm not there, there's about 300 other people that are all tracking the market just like I am. And we're all participating in the discussion. So if you're interested in joining that trading community, go to bitcoinschmitcoin.com and join. And that way you don't have to sit on the sidelines and wait for these like weekly streams that I do. Ascending broadening wedge. Do you see it there? No, I don't. So what, this thing? That guy? Oops. Can I not edit you? Something like that. Yeah, there's a nice little wedge there. Nice ascending wedge, as the Bitcoin likes to do. Loves ascending wedges, but it likes to break them upward, so. Yeah, good guy. I'll have to keep an eye on that as well. This totally could be another ascending wedge. Can you explain how to use the fan? I can, but I'm not going to do it in this stream. How do you calculate price targets? I don't know. It depends on what, there's not just a blanket answer for like this is how you calculate price targets. You have various methods of doing it, and depending on what the market's doing. Do you think the next Bitcoin bull run will be this year? Yes or no? I have no idea. Like, we haven't even finished marking down yet. Or maybe we have and we're going to rally to the fucking moon. I don't know. But don't get too far ahead of yourself. I have no idea what it's going to do. I have no idea what it's going to do tomorrow, Like, I'm just playing it day by day and adjusting my outlook as it goes. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys. I think this is a good time to end it. I'm running out of stuff, and I'd rather not just sit here and jabber on. But you know, if you're interested in what I have to say, and you want to have an open line of communication, go to bitcoinschmitcoin.com down here in the bottom right corner or in the description, and join the trading community today. And you know, even if you don't want to do that, any sort of support would be much appreciated. Like, drop a like on the video if you liked it, or drop a dumb thumbs if you didn't like it. You can thumb down, that's fine too. But if you liked it, you know, share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with your baby, share it with yourself. You know, anything to get the word out there. The streams are growing, which is nice. So again, go to bitcoinschmitcoin.com to join the trading community. And yeah, that's all I got. You guys have a great rest of your week. Maybe I'll do a stream this weekend, maybe not. We'll have to play it by ear, but that's all I got. Yeah, bye.